Breaking news today. Another investigation unfolds in the Epstein scandal, yet the client list remains undisclosed, and real answers are scarce. With both parties engaging in blame shifting, one must ask, why does the truth continue to elude us? Stay tuned for more updates.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
Best NBC is reporting on a secret deal reminiscent of the Epstein scandal during the first Trump administration. It's worth pausing to consider why this story persists regardless of who's in power. We're witnessing yet another investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, whose heinous crimes were facilitated by America's most powerful. Yet the full truth remains elusive. Both political parties are implicated, but it seems the establishment's true allegiance is to itself, not to justice. Why did the Department of Justice under both Republican and Democratic leadership conceal the client list? Who are they protecting? If you're expecting the mainstream media to expose this, think again. When was the last time they exposed their own? This issue extends beyond Epstein. It's about a system designed to protect the elite, while ordinary Americans are placated with lectures and hollow promises. Time to dive in.
It alleged that Epstein lured a steady stream of underage girls to his Palm Beach mansion to engage in nude massages, masturbation, oral sex, and intercourse. The girls, mostly from disadvantaged, troubled families, were recruited from middle and high schools around Palm Beach County. Middle and high schools. And they were offered money to bring new girls to Epstein. 6 of those women spoke exclusively to NBC News in 2019 about the abuse they endured.
I think the nature of this kind of abuse means that you're conditioned to be silent, to be isolated, secretive, and shameful.
I feel like, it was a big game for him, and we were the pieces of his game.
And you're like, I'm just not going to say anything because that's what he told me to do.
The women all have familiar stories of grooming, promises, and then sexual assault.
I can relate to pretty much every person sitting here next to me.
The scale and audacity of the events in Palm Beach County are striking. A well-connected financier systematically preyed on vulnerable young girls from local schools, many of whom were already facing challenges at home. These girls were enticed with promises of easy money, then coerced into recruiting others, fueling a cycle of abuse that went unchecked for too long. It's disgraceful that local authorities initially treated these victims as potential criminals, and the grand jury's decision to indict on just a single solicitation charge, ignoring the underage victims, highlights a profound institutional failure. Public trust in government and media is understandably low. The Epstein case exemplifies how the powerful, shielded by their wealth and connections, often dodge accountability. The lenient deal that allowed Epstein to spend most of his sentence outside of prison was negotiated secretly, keeping victims in the dark and denying them true justice. Such dealing should be universally condemned. These failures didn't occur in isolation. They were facilitated by a deeply entrenched establishment. In Palm Beach County, the Democratic leadership played a significant role in minimizing the severity of these crimes. For years, the mainstream media either ignored the story or gave it minimal attention, only to pivot when ignoring it further became untenable. Even today, efforts seem more focused on protecting powerful reputations than on securing justice for the victims. Many Americans are justifiably skeptical of official narratives and demand greater transparency. The refusal to release Epstein's full client list and ongoing denials from federal agencies deepen suspicions of deeper, possibly global conspiracies that benefit from obscuring the truth. The lack of repercussions for those involved in this scandal tarnishes our justice system and serves as a stark warning about the perils of unchecked power. It's time for genuine accountability and independent investigations. This is necessary not only for the sake of the victims, but also to begin restoring trust in our institutions. The American people deserve full disclosure about who was involved and why there was such concerted effort to conceal these crimes.
Epstein would be prosecuted by local authorities for 2 minor charges. Epstein got a 13-month sentence, but he was allowed to leave jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Here we have a textbook example of how the justice system bends for the well-connected. Despite overwhelming evidence and numerous alleged victims, Epstein received a mere slap on the wrist. After a grand jury process that many believe was compromised, he faced only minor charges. Charges insignificant for an average citizen, let alone for someone accused of such grave offenses. The result? A 13-month sentence, during which he was astonishingly allowed to leave jail for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. For most Americans, especially those without influence, such leniency is unthinkable. This isn't just a story about one man's crimes, it's about a system that repeatedly shields the elite from real consequences. The work-release arrangement allowed Epstein to continue his business activities while technically incarcerated, violating the sheriff's policies and offering a privilege never extended to a typical offender. These backroom deals erode public trust in our institutions. What's more troubling is the bipartisan failure to tackle this institutional decay. While Republicans have rightly demanded transparency and accountability, too many leaders from both parties seem content to let these scandals fade into obscurity. The previous Democratic administration in particular showed little interest in meaningful reform or in holding their own accountable, resorting instead to stonewalling and excuses, especially from high-ranking officials who should have been at the forefront of advocating for justice. The media's selective outrage and the government's refusal to release the full client list only deepens suspicions that this issue extends beyond one predator to a network of powerful individuals above the law. This is why many Americans are skeptical of globalist institutions and intelligence agencies, which appear more focused on protecting their own than serving the public. The pattern is clear. Elites receive special treatment, while ordinary citizens wonder if the system will ever work for them. The lesson for policymakers is clear. There is an urgent need for independent investigations and reforms to prevent secretive plea deals and ensure victims are not sidelined. Without genuine accountability, trust in government will continue to erode, widening the divide between the ruling class and the rest of the country.
And it was at that time that the Miami Herald and its incredible investigative reporter, Julie K. Brown, had begun to publish an award-winning series of probes into Epstein's case and specifically the contours of this very strange deal with Acosta.
When the Miami Herald and journalist Julie K. Brown launched their investigative series, it was a standout moment in journalism, piercing through the usual silence of the establishment. Brown's work uncovered the extensive crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, spotlighting his victim stories and the complicity of the political elite, making it impossible to ignore. Her series, Perversion of Justice, exposed how Epstein, a wealthy financier with political connections, manipulated the legal system. It showed how prosecutors, including Acosta, collaborated with Epstein's defense to keep the public and victims uninformed. MSNBC's coverage did some things right, such as accurately detailing Acosta's role in the non-prosecution agreement and the secrecy of the deal, which excluded victims from the conversation. The network also used effective visual storytelling, including court documents and survivor interviews, to humanize the narrative. Their analysis often frames the issue as a product of the Trump era, overlooking the bipartisan nature of the cover-up that began during the Bush administration. While it's fair to examine Acosta's appointment under Trump, the broader systemic issues that enabled Epstein for decades are often ignored. Also, MSNBC predominantly relies on legal analysts and former prosecutors for insights, many of whom are part of the system that failed the victims. This approach lacks skepticism towards the official narratives from the Department of Justice and the intelligence community, which have histories of self-protection. Including more independent voices such as victim advocates and critics of government secrecy could provide a more balanced perspective. The network also portrays the Miami Herald's reporting as a sudden revelation, ignoring that many knew of Epstein's activities but remained silent. Brown's reporting is significant because it broke through this complicity, bringing the story back into public discourse. Additionally, while MSNBC quickly points out failures during the Trump administration, it applies less scrutiny to the previous Democratic administration's inaction. An honest discussion about elite impunity should include all parties involved. Ultimately, the issue goes beyond any single administration or party. It's about a system that shields its own at the expense of justice. The Miami Herald and Julie K. Brown deserve recognition for tackling what others ignored. True change requires full transparency, including the release of Epstein's client list and accountability for all involved. The American public's growing skepticism towards institutions reflects a justified demand for trustworthiness and accountability.
The story wouldn't go away, so just a few days later, Alex Acosta did.
I do not think it is right and fair for this administration's Labor Department to have Epstein as the focus rather than the incredible economy that we have today. And so I called the president this morning. I told him that I thought the right thing was to step aside.
Donald Trump lamented the departure of his labor secretary, especially since there was nothing to see here.
I did have a falling out a long time ago. The reason doesn't make any difference, frankly, but I haven't spoken to him in probably 15 years or more. I wasn't a big fan of Jeffrey Epstein, that I can tell you. And now, if you look, the remnants hurt this man, and I hate to see it happen.
I mean, you hate to see a guy like Alex Acosta hurt, you know?
When a cabinet official like Alex Acosta resigns, attention often shifts from policy achievements to scandal, overshadowing the real gains made in strengthening the American economy. Under this administration, the labor market has seen robust job growth, wage increases, and historically low unemployment rates across various sectors. This progress has translated into more opportunities for working families, higher take-home pay, and a renewed sense of optimism about their financial futures. Small business owners have also reaped the benefits of deregulation and tax relief, which have spurred investment and expansion, while consumers have enjoyed increased purchasing power and more stable household budgets. As this case illustrates, media headlines frequently focus on past failures, particularly those stemming from systemic issues in previous administrations. The plea deal facilitated by Acosta, which allowed Epstein to evade serious federal charges and protected his associates, represents more than a poor judgment call. It highlights a justice system that appears skewed in favor of the well-connected. The Department of Justice criticized this as a misjudgment, and although Acosta faced no formal consequences, the impact on public trust has been profound. This issue goes beyond partisanship. It is a systemic flaw that affects multiple administrations and involves officials who chose expediency and secrecy over transparency and justice. The reluctance to fully disclose Epstein's network, including his so-called client list, intensifies concerns that powerful, possibly globally connected interests are being shielded, compromising accountability. The mainstream media's delayed attention to these issues contributes to a perception of ongoing cover-ups and selective indignation. But for many Americans, this situation underscores a disturbing reality. The rules differ for the elite, and substantial reform is urgently needed. From an economic standpoint, these scandals have tangible negative effects. Political turmoil and eroded public trust can dampen consumer confidence, deter investment, and divert attention from growth-enhancing policies that have significantly improved people's lives. Controversies involving government officials drain resources from critical initiatives aimed at bolstering the workforce, enhancing job training, and supporting American industries. The longer these issues remain unresolved, the more they risk eclipsing the positive economic momentum achieved in recent years. The message is clear. Transparency and accountability are not merely ethical necessities. They are crucial for a robust and healthy economy. When government institutions fail to hold the powerful accountable, they undermine the very foundation of trust upon which markets and communities rely. Americans deserve straightforward answers, and leaders who prioritize the welfare of Main Street over protecting entrenched powers. As always, it's interesting to hear how they like to spin this. Here we are again, another investigation concluded, another list of influential names withheld from the public. Both major parties, Republican and Democrat, have had their opportunities to act honorably, yet both have fallen short. The last Democratic administration, led by Biden and Harris, mastered the art of concealing the truth. Let's face it, the establishment protects its own, regardless of who's in power. If our government can't be transparent about the misconduct of the elite, what else might they be concealing? Perhaps it's time we reconsider our trust in those who consistently demand it. The real scandal lies not in what they disclose, but in what they choose to keep hidden. We would be happy to hear your comments. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, we will be watching them for you. That's all, folks.